We'll wait for you to sit down. Hey, this is a pretty good crowd tonight, and I'm very happy to see all of you guys and all of you girls. All right, and then I guess we'll just make up a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, to make this an engaging situation, feel free to come up and put your 2 cents in, because at the end of the day, we want to incorporate and include everyone. So, sound good? You guys have any questions yet? Yeah.
Are you buying the beers?
It depends.
Somebody wants in.
One thing we made.
Yeah, come on in.
We should have hooked up the.
Oh, come on in. It's what's his name? Terrence, come on in, man. Oh yeah. Terrence Gallagher. Yeah, I've met that guy from somewhere before.
We forgot to hook up the wireless mic, so probably for the question we just have to copy what they say so people can hear.
Okay, so if you guys ask a question, we'll repeat the question and then go from there. Cool? You ready? You ready?
We're ready.
You guys ready? All right. Thank you for showing up tonight, and whoever's watching the Trajectory podcast. My name's Scotty Carlisle.
Jake Itamura.
Tim Evans.
And tonight we are going to talk about some interesting things. It's going to get a little deep, I can tell you right now, which is what I like, because we have some experiences from this man that I think we can all learn from. So I'm very excited for the fact that he showed up tonight. But we'll get into who you are. Yeah, no, thank you. We'll get into who you are and all of that. But before, we have some housekeeping that we'd like to let people know, whoever's watching the podcast. Jason?
Yeah, so first off, if you're watching the recording or somebody's showing you this and you're not on YouTube right now, or you are, but you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. Our whole entire purpose for this is try to give a voice to people who have something good to say and something that can make an impact. So the more you subscribe, the more impact we can make. The other thing is every Monday at 12 o'clock, we do a personal brand mastermind to help you elevate your impact. And it's completely free. Just visit trajectoryglobal.com. There's information on there and a link to join our mastermind group.
And with that branding, personal branding, Jason's done all kinds of beta testing and basically figured out when to post, what kind of things happen, and it's a constant experiment. So he's basically giving everybody the tests that he's done and things that you can use for your own branding, which is, I think, very valuable for anybody that wants to do it.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Is like all of us get together, we all try different things. What works, we share. What doesn't, we share. So we all can move a little quicker as far as growing our impact.
Yep. And at the end of the day, the more people that we get involved with the conversation, the better that we all are. So if you're out there, if you're looking for something to get involved with that's making a difference, that's making the world a better place, that's helping people in your community, I'm inviting you over here, and we have a good group of people, awesome audience. Here we have wine and beer if that's what you like, or some people are drinking water and lemonade, that's fine too. But just show up, and we would love to see you. So that being said, let's talk about who we have here. Mr. Tim Evans. I met him through Rotary. He came and he spoke, and he's done some pretty hard things that I don't know if I could personally do, and that says a lot, because I'll do a lot. And so I'm personally wanting to ask you some questions and get a feel from why you do and what gives you purpose. And so I just think, that being said, could you introduce yourself and give a little bit perspective of where you came from and why you do what you do and what it is that you do?
Thank you, Scotty. Well, I'm an outsider. I'm a nobody, because when I was 4, my parents and my younger brother and I flew in from London to move to America, the United States. And at this point in time, sadly, my parents have passed away and my next younger brother, and all I have left is one baby brother in Chicago. So I'm kind of an outsider here in this Western Hemisphere. Everybody else is on the other side of the pond in England or Wales or Ireland. So I came here and have lived in America. I love America. I'm ultra grateful to America. It's a one-of-a-kind place in the world, and I've seen a few places in the world. And it's where someone who has an idea can share it with the community, and they'll find that a lot of people will support it and make it happen, make it come to life, and make it affect a lot of lives. So I'm a success story in that I've just been very blessed by the United States.
So right now, you've had an organization called the Unforgettables for a while. Can you explain what the Unforgettables is?
The Unforgettables Foundation is the result of my life having a career trajectory that probably I wouldn't have guessed in high school or college or grad school. In 1990, I was invited to come to Loma Linda, California, to be the first chaplain of Loma Linda Children's Hospital when the hospital split and carved off its own specific children's wards separate from the adult hospital. And so I got to be the first person on the floors, as I used to call it, rabbi, priest, pastor, all in one, and all the other faith systems, shaman, you name it, all, priest, you name it. When you're a chaplain, there are 3 zones in the world where chaplains operate: prisons, military, and hospitals. And that's because you get to meet people in crisis, and you really don't have time to ask them what faith system they are. You have to just take them for who they are, what the situation is, and deal with that and try and be supportive.
So what kind of scenarios did you deal with? Like overall, you're a chaplain at a children's hospital.
Yeah, I did that from 1990 to about 04. And you got everything. You got the front door of any hospital is the emergency room. And I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie like most of those folks are. I love the ER because you don't know who's coming through or what illness, what scenario, what situation is coming through the door next. It is constant turnover, change, excitement, shock, all the whole bit. Then there's floors where it's called HEMONC, or as we know on the street, cancer care for kids. That is just a dissonant world because most people just hate thinking that innocent little children from 2 days all the way to almost 20 years can spend most of their life dealing with cancer and then die. Now, luckily, from back when I started, it was about 70% of kids had long-term or did not survive a cancer diagnosis. Now it's up to 90% survive. So technology, healthcare has improved a lot, and I'm glad to see that. We're all glad to see that. Many fewer kids dying. But then you've got injuries, car accidents, falls. You know, kids have the complex we all remember pretty well, that you're invincible. You're not vulnerable. Speed, height, depth, mass, they don't apply to you when you're 14, 15, 16, and then especially a boy. You just, everything is all out, balls out, you know? And so you get these car crashes. Sadly, this time of year, every year, you'd expect some terrible graduation weekend or end of school things where kids are just cutting loose, usually around a car or sometimes around weapons, sometimes around substances, you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever. And just as they've worked all those 4 hard years to move on and become adults and realize their dreams, realize life, it's over. So, and then you have plenty of kids that just come in for like a hernia or an appendix, or they need to have their ear trimmed up, or they have a cleft palate. And it's stuff that they come in and they go home and they continue their lives. So a children's hospital is an amazing place. At that point in time, Loma Linda was the only religiously based children's hospital in the United States. And even at that time, there were probably, I think I did a check one time, I was one of only 50 full-time chaplains at Children's Hospital in North America. I mean, that's a pretty unique niche job, isn't it? 50 people doing that out of all the hundreds of thousands of people in North America. So there have been more children's hospitals built since 1990 when I did it. But out of that milieu, I learned from parents who had lost a kid, and the chaplain is almost always called into that situation. I learned from parents firsthand, face to face, critical moment, that a lot of them didn't have money for the burial. And in the scenario of the ICU, of labor and delivery, where a lot of kids don't make it through pregnancy in the first 6 months of life, as a group, it's probably the roughest where you're going to see the most loss. 70% of all the cases that my charity has helped over the 26, 27 years we've been around have been first 6 months of life and pregnancy. And I learned from the fact that the dads, especially, were always telling me, how are we going to afford this? We can barely make it financially day to day. And now all of a sudden, on the worst, darkest day of our life, we realize we're going to have to come up with $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. How are we going to do this? So I did a little research. Anyone that knows me know I'm not really techie, so it was not the easiest thing. But I went online, did a little search, and found out that there wasn't any kind of governmental, religious, charity, community-based organization in North America to deal with the death of children and the corresponding cost of a funeral. And so I'm kind of pushy and fun-loving, but intrepid and relentless, and stick my nose forward when I get an idea and run with it. And basically being a nobody. That's why I tell everyone I'm a nobody. I have one blood relative in the Western Hemisphere, but the role opened all the doors. Everyone from the sheriff to the chief judge to the DA, to politicians, to company CEOs, Jack Brown, the CEO of Stater Brothers, to all these different people respected the role.
Yeah.
And the role that I carried, and I realized that, and I didn't take advantage of it or play off of it for my own benefit. But in that situation, I was able to call anybody, college presidents, hospital presidents, whoever, and say, if you can't, give me someone that's a decision maker, someone that can sit at the table. And the fall of '99, we started up, got our IRS certification, and created the Unforgettables Foundation. And July 24th is my birthday, and I'm gonna finally go into the sunset and let someone else run it after 26, 27 years.
Wow.
What gave you the motivation to become a chaplain?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because, I mean, that's a pretty tough job and it requires a lot. How did you get into becoming a chaplain, or what motivated you to do that?
I tell people I lucked out. I fell into it. You know, as you get old like I am, so much of life is timing. And then, you know, I don't expect everyone to have the same religious or spiritual framework I have. Everyone goes through their own journey, has their own views. I love that God doesn't mandate that everyone all fall in line and just like that. For me, I didn't necessarily want to be the minister of a little church out in the community or out in the Timbuktu or something like that. I wanted to do something niche and special. So I was always a youth minister for the first part of my career after grad school for about 6 years in big churches. So I call them mahogany churches, I call them mega churches, whatever. They're just big, and it affords you to usually have a little bit of money to spend on the kids. You can take them on mission trips, you can take them into the community with a soup kitchen, you can introduce them and expose them to a lot of things that will potentially affect and even change your life. And so I did that, and in wanting to be like that, I took a class which pretty much anyone can take on the grad level. It's called CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education, which introduces you to how to operate in a healthcare system as a chaplain or as a spiritual caregiver. And not everyone is Christian by any means. We had Christians and Protestants, we had Jews and rabbis, we had imams, we had people of Native American faith, we had all the different tapestry involved. I think we had a monk one time come through. So it represented a lot of the tapestry of American religion. But I wanted to do something that was just a little different, a little off kilter, and had to do with kids. And so that's how I got into that, because I had that training, and then 4 or 5 years later, when the job opened up, some people remembered I was on the East Coast in an inner city church in Washington, D.C. I mean, D.C. is a hard town. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in there. One of my kids was killed with a baseball bat 2 blocks from my church. Another kid was 14 and always wanted to drive, and in the convoluted love of the kids in his 30-story apartment building while his mom was away at work, the older guys wanted to show love to him, so they went and stole a car. And they bring it to Michael. I still remember his name, Mike Favors. This is like 40 years ago. And he was I'm short, but he was shorter than me as a 14-year-old. And he gets behind this car, less than a mile away, he plows it into a wall at 100 miles an hour because he wanted to feel the experience of driving. And you really can't blame the other kids, the 16 and the 15 and the 17-year-old. They love the kid. They're trying to do something nice for him. Only problem is they didn't figure out all that stuff that goes along with being too short to look over the steering wheel. Mm-hmm. And so I saw a lot. And then when it opened up, the job on the West Coast here, decided that my ex at the time, who was a children's hospital nurse, we came on out and have stayed ever since. Does that help answer the question?
Definitely. Yeah.
When you guys heard what he does, was there any questions that stirred in your mind? Like, because in my mind, I'm like, I've experienced loss. We've all experienced loss. You live long enough, you're going to experience loss. But that is the hardest thing. And then when that's your thing, is you're dealing with the hardest thing that pretty much anybody ever deals with. But you're doing it on the daily. And so, my mind goes into how do you reconcile, because like what you alluded to earlier, people were like, how can God, when you were saying that, how can God have this kid that is born and in 2 years old, he's got cancer, and then he has to suffer until he's 8 years old and then he dies? Why is that? How do you possibly reconcile that? And then when you see it over and over, how do you reconcile that?
I don't know if anyone's good at dealing with grief. I don't know if you can't really get a specialty. You can learn to cope, and you can learn some skills and some thoughtful ideals and values and some ways of coping that will maybe make you useful to the world. And I learned, anyone that knows me knows I'm a talker, I'm a tease, I'm loud, I'm always in the middle stirring the drink. I love to laugh. Well, that doesn't work real well in the ICU always. And
see that.
The nurses, especially in the ICU, and especially labor and delivery. I can tell you, L&D nurses, when they're trying to get a woman through delivery, they don't want some loud dude walking in. No, that's not what they want. So I had to learn to keep my mouth shut, or tone it back and tone it down. And the less said in those situations, the better. And I tell people when I do, I've been fortunate to officiate like 700 funerals. I'm going to do 4 this weekend. And I tell people, don't let the pain and suffering and hardness of life beat the child out of you. As an adult, that's one of the biggest challenges because it can harden you. It can harden your heart. It can harden your viewpoint. It can harden the way you interact with other people. And children, when I've seen how kids deal with the inevitability of having a bad disease or maybe even being told through their parents that they're not going to make it, it's amazing. They let faith, hope, and love deal with them. And I mean, it's real. Kids have incredible faith, trust, and those characteristics, those strengths, those core things that children have serve adults well too. And so, you know, when you're in those trenches, and I mean, it is trench warfare, there's no doubt. Being around someone who's died, if you're not feeling anything or if you're not aware of other people's feelings or the situation, then you need to go into therapy and take a little time off. But you also do learn to develop some armor. You just do. And some people say to me, dude, you're awful callous and joking about some dark topics and stuff like that. And I'm like, hey, I apologize. I have seen so much and experienced so much. I'm not heartless, but you just have to develop a little bit of distant space, callous, whatever you call it, to deal with it every single day. But I have shared it around. I don't want to take all the credit myself. The first 10 years, I had another job and just came home to the phone call of heart-rending and heart-ripping calls from people who just lost a child asking for help. And so I realized this is going to drag you down, as optimistic and positive a person as you are, unless you can share it around taking those phone calls. So we've always had a small staff, but we've had other people who will take the calls and share them around so that I'm not taking calls every day. So I'm not some superhuman being. I do ask my staff to take turns, and we it is a very real fact that death and dying, you have to develop a spiritual and a practical side to cope with all the hardness. I mean, I deal with all the mortuaries. All the mortuaries in Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino County have probably sent us at least one case over the years. We've helped 10,000 families since I had the idea in 98, 99. And so we've dealt with all of them, and they're very cool people. You know, morticians are in the shadows of life. How many of you know a mortician? Not many of you do, probably. But think about their job. They go into work, and they got people whose emotions are on ultra raw. Yep. And they are looking to just find someone to go off on. They are angry, stuffed, they're wanting to just... So if someone doesn't have the right spelling in the funeral document, there's going to be someone in that family that just goes off on them. But then when they're not dealing with a family at graveside, they're in there, and some of them are embalmers. Can you imagine having to embalm someone, make sure their hair is just right, make sure their skin looks pretty normal after they've been dead a week, and dressing them and all of that? I mean, it's a pretty dark world. So I'm very empathetic and caring to them. And the frontline mortuary people are ultra great. They are really good people. To do that job, you have to care. And so I have very high regard for them. And many of the owner groups are good too. You know, hey, it's like anything that's a corporate, you have to pay bills. You have to pay salaries. You have to pay retirement. You have to put the lights on. You have to pay for all of the caskets, all this stuff. So there's cost to it. And if I've had a pushback, it's a lot of people have said, oh, those greedy jerks, they're charging us and everything. I'm like, it's a business. In the United States, the funeral industry is a business. They've got to make a profit or else they're going to go away. So try and be sympathetic to their side too. They're good people. Yeah, it is expensive. There are various levels of cost, but you get what you pay for. Just like with a car, just like with anything, it is an industry and it's a business, and there are some hard people. There are, just like in any career, there are jerks. But for by and large, it's a really good, solid group, and they do care about their clients. They really do.
So my question is, when you go up against, you're having somebody that's having an emotional breakdown, are there any tactics that you use? So the first thing is you have to control yourself, right? And that comes with repetition, I imagine. You figure it out.
Well,
right?
you try and get, when you asked earlier, I don't have an answer to why God allows children to die. I learned that very early on, and I found myself making the mistake early on of trying to come up with some really creative, smart, bright answers.
There is none.
And you'll find people that are really deep, really caring, really thoughtful, really substantive, and luckily they don't make you totally humiliated by reminding you that there's really no, there's really no answer, and you're not going through it. I'm going through it. And that's true. I never lost a kid. I lost tons of kids that I cared about in the hospital, and I know a lot of families that we've been able to help. But I never went through that. And if you haven't been through that, it's awful hard to say anything that really makes a difference. So I say, talk as little as possible, but show signs of love through how you look, how you touch, how you, what ministers or chaplains do is, there's a term, we call it ministry of presence. It's your being with them in a very tough moment is about the best you can do. To be with them in that moment as, and I don't always love this term judgmental, because people have to have judgment and insight, and they have to see what's smart and what's not smart, and what's good for them or not, what's safe, what isn't. But without being judgmental toward how they're responding. Just letting them go through this moment how they need to go through it. Because we don't know their whole life story. So we let them. Some people are screamers. Some people are anger ridden. Some people just go quiet. Some people just shut down and curl up in a little fetal position in the corner. Some people just sit and hold their baby. And hours. And you just have to let them be there. I mean, Scotty, I admire your thoughtfulness to bring this topic up. You told me you've lost a couple of siblings. Losing my brother to an unexpected brain aneurysm 5 years ago? Oh my goodness. You kind of get ready for your parents. You love them. But you know, they're old people, like I am now. They're getting old. Sometimes they're not, but my parents are both 85. Nothing like losing my brother. Just nothing. That really was just like, I'd seen thousands of dead bodies. Been through thousands of death scenarios. But there's no way to prepare for that. And there's no way to prepare sometimes for a parent, sometimes for a best friend, someone that you're living with, you're dating, you're loving, you're married to, someone that's in your family. There's just no way. And even in our society today with such communication, an actor, an actress, a star, a celebrity, a statesperson, somebody famous, people actually have invested in them and they can experience grief. I don't understand it as much, but hey, that's not my job.
Do you have different ways that you handle interactions with fathers compared to mothers?
That's a great question. There is no set plan for males or females, moms or dads, whatever, any other family member. There's no set model on how genders grieve. However, I will never forget the cries that I've heard multiple times of mothers who've lost a child. It is soul deep to hear and stand beside a mother who is wailing. Her soul is crushed and broken. She doesn't know if she's going to live another second. And to stand there and be this is humbling, is overwhelming, is hopefully silencing, it taught me to just keep your mouth shut and stand here as long as it takes, for as much as she needs what you represent here with her in this moment, and just let it be about her. Dads care about their kids. They love their kids. Dads more quickly than not go into the cost. It was mostly dads that would pull me off to the side while mom is still holding the hand of their deceased child on a gurney or in a bed or in a bassinet, or just holding an infant in her lap. It was the dads that often said to me, how are we going to afford this? So, and I mean, men are protectors, so they're thinking about some of the practicalities, and they're knowing that there's not much in the bank. But and I guess I give dads the credit for me having the idea to start with, but I call it the unforgettables because of mothers. Because I can't tell you the number of times, hundreds and hundreds of moms look at me so sincerely in the eye and saying, Chaplain or Tim, or I don't want this baby forgotten. This baby was robbed of life. This baby only had a few breaths, only had a few days, only had a few years, and I don't want this baby's precious life forgotten like a puff of smoke and evaporating and going away. And so that's why I called it the unforgettables. From a spiritual side, my personal, private, in the Bible it says God writes the name of every human being on his hands. So that to me makes human beings unforgettable because they're God's kids. And everyone's made special, separate, unique in my mind. But, yeah, I also called it on a secondary level the unforgettables for moms, because moms don't want their precious child they've given birth to carried, nurtured, loved, had plans and dreams for, all that bundle. They don't want it forgotten if that child is cut off, unfortunately, through whatever kind of circumstance.
So, I don't know if you guys have questions, but my next question, and I think all of us, and this is why I wanted you to be here. When you have to deal with that, and you have to deal with the mother and the father, however it is, whatever discussion that you guys have, however you can, appease the situation, right? Because there's really nothing, like you said, you're quiet and you're being with them. So the fact that you have volunteered yourself to be in that situation, and a lot of the people that you've been doing this for a while, so you know these people down the road. They lost their kid 10 years ago, and you still interact with them. And I want to know what that conversation is, what those people that have lost. So for example, somebody might be watching that has lost their kid a little while ago. And it is all they can do to not just freak out and curl up in the corner like you said. But there is something that is on the other side of that grief. There's something that is on the other side of that helplessness and the hopelessness, because they survive. And later, they have a different outlook. And I want to know if you have any conversations or if you have any relationships with people that have lost, and if you've had conversations. Where are they in life after they've lost somebody back then? What is it given to them?
Every human being shows tendencies after they get the lights turned on at like 3 or 4 years of age. And you see tendencies in your loved ones and your family members and your students and people that you know on your street. We all have characteristics and tendencies, and is it our environment or is it genetics or whatever it is, everyone deals with stress, anxiety, chaos, crisis, overwhelming fear, panic their own way. And so we go into our own natural ways of responding to a bee sting,
Right?
right?
Mhm.
Because it's overall. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Everyone deals in their own different way. But people do need encouragement. You just don't know when. But I tell people repetitiveness and being, if you want to be anything to someone who's gone through a loss or a challenge, be consistent. One of the greatest compliments I get, and I'll give you a story. This last fall, I get a phone call, and it's a lady who had married a guy, second marriage, and he had lost a child that we'd helped. So she had come into this experience where her husband had lost his child, and she had embraced the family. She had volunteered for us. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. Her son dies back east at age 19. And amazingly to me, I mean, just gives my life so much meaning, and it's not about me, but I take away. She calls me within an hour, and she said, the person on the planet I had to talk to first when I found out that my child died was you. Now, I mean, talk about profound, humbling gift. That this lady, beautiful person, who has known about it from the outside, all of a sudden joined this terrible but amazing club of moms who've lost a child. And actually, you know, most people don't realize, like 1 in 3, maybe 1 in 4 women across this country have lost a child through a miscarriage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really incredibly high. So it's not a strange or amazing situation for a lot of women because their friends have gone through it or they've gone through it. But she said something to me. She said, you consistently say through your actions and through your words sometimes that you care about me and my family. And I tell people it's not just a trained minister or a charity executive or someone that started a charity or someone that's supposed to be nice or that's someone that's supposed to be useful or beneficial. It's anyone. When you come across someone who's been through that kind of life disaster, chaos, shaking, crumbling type of situation, just be consistent. And I was gonna, I saw your eyes well up, and I love that you're a real person. And I was just gonna reach out, grab your shoulder quick, just like I did. An appropriate, and we use that word a lot too, but a sincere, appropriate gesture that's not overdone. A look in the eye, and you just lean in and you say, I care about you. You reach out and you say, I care about you, and you shake their hand. You just give them a cool, non-creepy hug, and you say, I care about you. It's quick, it's sincere, it's tight, Grab on the shoulder. People can detect sincerity. People can detect genuineness. Be as true blue to who you want to be as a true human being in that moment, and they will realize that you sincerely care and love for them. You're sorry that they're going through this, but they realize you can't do anything about it. But that you will, for the most part, be there most of the time if they need it down the road. That's the gift you can give. Even in the hospital, one of these chaplains are trained. You're a religious person. That is not the time for a come to Jesus moment or talk about what religion is or anything like that. That's another day.
Yep.
Don't, and I've seen really good people. I mean, these are really meaningful people, even professional, trained people. say some awful things, and I didn't cuff them upside the head. I didn't even, because, it's not going to do any good. But you can have another baby just like what you just had. Or God needed that baby more than you did. And there's something, I once had someone say that to someone in the room, and the mother just, I don't give a damn what God wanted. I want my baby. I don't care if God wanted my baby. Yep. Well, the person's trying to be cool and trying to be loving and sympathetic. Or, I can have another one just like it. I don't want another one. I want Bob. I want Sheila. I want Rosa. Good grief. I don't want another baby. I'm not even thinking there. I'm not even close to there. So I tell people, the least you say, the better. The one that always goes is, I love you. Just, I love you. You can say, I'm sorry. Some people complain, it'll work. Just don't add a lot to it. Just say, I'm sincerely sorry. Boom. That's enough. Look in the eye. Just making that really sincere moment count. Not about you, but just letting them know that this has touched you and your life too, and that they're important to you, and that your child is important to me. And if you really want to say something, say, I'll do my very best to try to not ever forget your child. That's something a mom really 9 out of 10 times. But again, there's no guarantee. You might say the very best, you might have all the trained things, and that moment is so hot for them, they just claw your eyes out. That's okay. You just have to understand that's where they're at. They are just cut to the very core. And so, it's trial and error. We do our best. I've made some horrific mistakes, said some dumb things. I'm a professional in this. You guys, there's a number of you that would be much better than I am, just because you are in touch with who you are. You're in touch with the spiritual side of things. You're in touch with these people. And you just have a way of communicating. I care about you. I love you. And I'll do my best to be there for you. Even though I'm flawed and imperfect, and sometimes I won't say or do or be at the right place or time, but I'm going to try. It's all you can do. There's only so much you can do. We can't control everything. Certainly can't control children and death.
It sounds like a lot of what you do is kind of taking in their energy, like connecting with them, which sounds like it could be really draining. I mean, I know you said you built up kind of like an armor over this time, but do you feel at some point it was a big sacrifice on your part to be able to do this?
Being an extrovert can really mitigate against, because we extroverts are loud. We're always filling quietness with talk. And I struggle trying to keep mindful of that. Energy and people lift up an extrovert. I was just with a lady last night at her 70th birthday party. She's the wife of a dear friend of mine, and she asked the question, how many of you think I'm an extrovert? And half the room did, 3/4 of the room. How many of you think I'm an introvert? And I just raised my hand. And she goes, only one of you, huh? She goes, why? I said, because you have to retreat to quietness and solitude and no people around you from what I've seen. She goes, you're right. I'm an introvert. She goes, I try to be like an extrovert, but the bottom line is my battery will not charge unless I'm off in a quiet room, reading a book, being under the covers, whatever it takes to be away from people. Extroverts recharge through being around other people in relationship. That's how. So, I'll probably burn out early. Who knows? None of us knows what affect our day-to-day living. And I've always, since getting into chaplaincy, I think healthy chaplains or healthy people that deal with other people, every year or so, get a couple sessions of therapy. Get another person's point of view. Because we can't always be trusted to look at ourselves honestly in the mirror, right?
True.
I mean, when I look in the mirror, I see this square-jawed, 6'2", handsome, leading man type thing. And then I talk to my family and my friends. So it is so hard for us to be honest with ourselves, but being honest, honesty is such a beautiful thing. A lot of people say kindness, and I'm 100, and I'm always humbled and I'm always shocked when people say, oh, you're so kind. Well, probably if you knew me, I'm not always that kind, but I'm brutally honest. And that's why I'm hardwired. If everyone in the world was like me and brutally honest, there would be not a lot of kindness. So you need this balance. You need all these different personalities to make this tapestry of the world work. And so, you know, you go with what your strengths are. And just for me, I ask God to make me useful. But whatever your spiritual background or underpinning is, try and find a way to be useful in life and in crisis. Yeah, and you know, you don't want to steer this direction because it can be tough. Yeah, it can be really tough.
How do people go about reaching out to your organization?
Thank you for the question. How do people reach out about Unforgettables? We are very well known at the county level, the school district level, the hospital level, the mortuary level. We're not very well known in the general population for a couple of reasons, I think. First of all, whenever I go to speak at any room, I see like a third to a half of the people look down like, oh man, I don't want to hear about dead kids. I don't want to hear about this dark side of society. You know, it's not, and we naturally steer away from that. A lot of people do. And we don't get a lot of TV, radio, internet coverage. That's why something like this, Scotty, is so nice. And we don't have a budget for marketing. Never have. I've got a friend in here, Jess, who's helped me with Instagram and with, you know, internet and Facebook, and you know, I'm just not good at it. I'm old. But the bottom line is, we push people to our website. And that's where the stories are told. That's where the introduction is, unforgettables.org. And when people hear about it, I got to say, very, very, very rarely, maybe 2 or 3 people in 25 years have ever said anything negative about it. And so I don't focus on the negative. I still remember one very, very well-known businesswoman in one of the communities in the Inland Empire. You'd probably know the name. Very wealthy, very successful. One of my donors asked her for money one time, and her response just crushed the donor. The donor came running back to me crying. The lady said, well, why do I want to put my money into boxes that go on the ground, never to be seen again? Dang. Well, she was looking at it from an ultra pragmatic business, ROI, return on investment, stuff like that. She was not factoring in human feeling, human touch, human emotion at all. But, so your question, how do we get known? Just all of you guys, whenever you hear of someone who's lost a child, gently, if asked, or if you're in the situation where your opinion is valued, you can let them know if they're struggling for money. And we do focus on people that are really financially hardship. Then be our ambassador. I love that. All of you are now ambassadors. You know the story. Some of you may go online and do extra research. Who knows? But we're very honored to have helped, like I said, 10,000 cases over 25 years, about 250 a year, all the way from the Colorado River and mostly Indio, Coachella, Thermal, all the way up to Barstow. We have extensions in a couple of other states, including Nevada. And then all the way out to Upland in Orange County. We do cover Pomona, which is in LA County, and a little bit in San Diego, but we cover all of Orange too. So Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino counties, if you ever hear of a case or see someone on the street with a sign or whatever, tell them, call the Unforgettables. And we have a pretty good reputation that if they are legitimately struggling, we'll get some financial help to them applied to their mortuary bill. We don't put cash in people's hands because I learned that in the hospital that you just have to put people in situations where they don't have to be untrustworthy. You just try and make it as easy for them, so you apply the money onto the bill of their child, and that's how we do it.
Okay, that takes me to my next question, and I'm glad you mentioned that. A lot of people have a problem with donating money to organizations, whether it's yours or any other organization, or homeless, or whatever it is, because of what you just said, because of the trust issue. Is this money really going where it's supposed to go? Is this really, am I really donating for these kids, or are these people just pocketing the money? How do you approach someone that, you know, for example, you're coming to me as one of the sponsors and you want to get me to donate to your organization? How do you get them to trust that and to trust that it is actually going to these people?
Well, it's a percentage, and it's a small percentage of people that need to verify. That's the way they're hardwired, and I respect that.
Because I mean, honestly, nowadays, and it's unfortunate, but trust.
Yeah.
Well, some of the major nonprofits, 95% of the money that goes to the infrastructure, 5% goes to the cause.
Exactly.
So I'll tell you a couple of things we focus on. If someone comes to me, one of my donors comes and asks me where it's going, I tell them to go to GuideStar. That's a national, works for the IRS and all of the forms that you have to turn in annually, and it lays it out. So you can find out what percentages are. The whole world of nonprofits recognized a couple years ago that the smaller a charity is, and we call it capacity, or the less staffed they are, or have a big brother entity. And I'm not running down Ronald McDonald House, but they have Ronald McDonald Corporation, and the owners of the various locations are usually involved. They have a big corporate office that manages all of their houses for them. There are a lot of charities that they're just one little one in town with a do-gooder that's trying to. You can check out through GuideStar all of that to find out what percentage. But the charity world did realize that some of the smaller ones, the percentages aren't always as true and helpful, because I don't get any help with my copy machines. I don't get a marketing agency that's hired by a company that helps me to run all my ads, to run all my billboards, all like that. We don't have a parent umbrella company that does all the tax audits for us, that does all the accounting for us. As a little charity, we have to do all that. So my overhead is going to be higher than some of the ones that advertise 5% goes. Well, they've got a pretty good mother or fathership behind them that's helping them out, that's covering a lot of those costs. You got to have a copy machine. You got to have an answering machine system, or a phone backup system. You have to have an office. You have to pay for light. You have to pay for your salary. The other thing I tell people is that does hurt charity, and I'm not perfect, but I've always paid myself. After 25 years, I make $80,000 a year. I can tell you, I know that there are a ton of charities out there. Once you do a little digging, or ask the charity before you donate it to it, and I tell people, do your homework. Their CEO with half the experience, half the education, half the background are making 2 or 3 times as much. Just do your homework. And I mean, there's lots of great charities, and they pay their people a lot. I don't begrudge people being paid, but there are a lot of charities as well. I don't want to say a lot, but there are quite a few charities that their executives getting paid a nice chunk. It's not necessarily it's a career for them. And I got into ministry and I got into charity knowing that I would never be paid like most of my friends. Most of my friends make 2, 3, 4 times what I make. I know that. I'm cool with it because I'm an adult and I made that decision going into this because there are some incredible other compensations and benefits. When I walk into a room of people often single me out as a charity person. I get all this community esteem and regard. I mean, that's wonderful. I don't deny that, and I don't downplay it. That's a benefit to my life that a lot of other people who are great people, who do great things, don't get. But you can't have it all. And so you just have to realize that I think the charity sector, like you're indicating, should be pretty sacrificial, should be pretty careful. I've said our money is blood money. The money we raise we have to be very careful with it simply because people trust us. They're talking about children who have died. I mean, this is sacred money if you want to use it. And so various charities will come in different colors, shades, their missions, and there's a lot of cute charities, there's a lot of nice charities, there's a lot of important charities, and then there's urgent charities. And I've always told people I'm not the least bit apologetic. Unforgettables is an urgent charity. You have to bury your kid within 2 or 3 days. That's the way our society works. You know, if hospitals, they're an urgent charity. If a kid needs his gallbladder taken out, it has to be done today. So there are urgent, there are also important charities, but it's just they don't have the same ticking clock like some. The one I started, the Unforgettables, is an urgent, essential charity. We heard that through COVID, the word essential. This is an essential charity because there's a lot of families who, on the darkest day of their life, then realize that they not only got a kick to the gut over the loss of their kid, but then when they found out that they didn't have enough money to bury that kid, they got a second kick to the gut. And I just thought that in this country where we have enough, we could do better and we could help these people. That's why I started it, and that's why I'm still doing it and handing it off to someone who will probably take it to new heights that I didn't even take it.
So, do you have anything else to say about that?
No, I mean, thank you for coming.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
It's great to
thank
meet you.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
No, it's good to see you too, and I'm very thankful for you being here because, again, you guys see what he's done and how he's interacted with people that are literally struggling with the worst thing that can ever happen in somebody's life. All of us, I hope, can take something from this conversation and deal with somebody that you're next to that is struggling in some way, because it doesn't take that much to just be there. Mm-hmm. Just your presence. Just be there. Just listen. Be authentic. Be real, and care. Be sincere. That's all it takes. You don't have to have the right answer. You don't have to have the right answer. Just be there, and we all have the opportunity. We don't have to own a nonprofit. Nope. We don't have to do all this stuff. It's literally the people that you interact with, and those are who you can make a big difference.
I want business people to be successful. I want lots of people in the world to make a lot of money. I just want good people to be those ones because they will give a small portion back to those of us in the charity sector that are trying to do our thing.
Awesome. So that's basically it. And then we're gonna cut and then have some other topics. And I have a glass of wine sitting over there. It's really calling my name. So, but
you still got every time we got to do something.
So a lot of what Trajectory is founded on is the principle called MOVE, right? And so if you guys know it, you can say it out loud too. But for the people that are watching on TV, so MOVE is M, make a difference in other people's lives. O is offer up your time, talents, and gifts. V is find victory in the small things. And E is encourage others.
Beautiful. That's a great model.
And it's so relevant.
Yeah.
And we can all move.
Yeah.
So That's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. And hopefully you guys got out of it some good stuff. And that's it.
Thank you.
See ya. Sayonara. Yeah, oh, okay.
What would be your worldview on how one can prepare for the loss of a loved one? I'm not sure if you touched up on that.
Wait, say that again?
Okay.
But what would be your view on how one can prepare for the loss of a loved one? Because see, I'm very close to my mom.
Yep.
So, and obviously no one lives forever. And so I've always had that thought on how I would operate and react in any given moment. You know, I would no longer to have my mom with me. So how do you approach that?
I encourage people, because, you know, in doing all these funerals I've done, you do hear the loss. People wish they'd have done something different. They wish they'd have said something. They wish they'd have been with them on a trip, or they wish. And they have all of these reservations, and they feel bad that they didn't do it. And so bring those tough topics up to the people you love. And they don't have to dialogue with you. Just be sensitive that they may not want to talk about it ever or then, or it may not be quite the right time. But say what your heart tells you to say, and bring up what your heart, probably in a smaller, more intimate moment with that person, not with a big crowd. But just say, you know, I've been thinking about life and death. I've been thinking about the realities of future and the clock ticking. I heard this old dude say that the longer you live, the more you love, the more you lose. And the more you invest in people, and the longer you live on this planet, unfortunately. So a couple months ago, we were at some event, and they were all, one of the games was, who's got the most contacts in your phone? And they were going around the room, and I stayed quiet. I didn't think it was fair. And someone said, I got 4,000. And some smart person in the corner goes, okay, Evans, how many do you have? And I had like 9,200. So I have a big circle. And I'm losing people all the time. And I just have to accept that as, now it's different, a parent to a casual acquaintance or something like that. But it's just part of it, and I tell people, acknowledge that it's part of life and bring that stuff up, and many times you'll be pleasantly shocked at what that person says to you, how they value you, how they have some insights for you that you didn't think they had or that you weren't expecting, and you'll walk away feeling like, okay, maybe I'm a little more prepared.
Last question. For the people that are watching on YouTube right now, or any, you know, if somebody wanted to donate to your organization, how do they go about it?
They can go online to our website, unforgettables.org. Thank you for saying that, because we are in the business of raising money. Or they can send us an email to info@theunforgettables.com. And I was too naive to make it a .org way back when, so it's theunforgettables.com. But our website is just unforgettables.org. So I finally got around to it. But thank you for that. And yeah, we do take donations, and we need them because we want to help these families as much as we can. Last year, about 150,000 we gave to families. So we have to always be on the fundraising edge.
What's the average cost of a case?
We're giving out on a sliding scale, so I want to be very clear. We don't give the whole amount for a couple reasons. It would bankrupt us with the amount that we're doing and at the cost of burial. But also, I think people need skin in the game. It's your own dignity and honor at stake. Even if you can only come up with $50, I think every family needs to participate in that process. It's good for you to realize that you've helped take care of your family and your own child somehow. And, you know, some people have bigger networks. Some people will do kind will do all kinds of fundraisers, and I respect them and I admire their tenacity. And some people just, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the connections, they're newly here in this country, things like that. So we're glad to be that bridge, and we're glad when they thank us down the road, even though 95% of the people just know us as a name and never meet us face to face. It's always an incredible thing to walk down the street and have someone, like I've had it numerous times, just stop, point at my jersey because I'm always branding, and then start hugging on me and bawling their eyes out. I'm the lucky one. I get to receive that thanks that so many people like all of you or the community that's kept us going. We're a community-driven charity because we don't have any product. We don't have anything we make. It's all goodwill. That's how we've survived. That's how we've raised almost $10 million in those 26 years. It's because of good people saw the value and made a donation.
Well, thank you for everything.
Definitely. It's only my head, don't worry. We got that on camera, right?